You mentioned the word entropy. Now, I'm not a native speaker, so I wasn't too familiar with the word, so I actually had to look it up. And I'm guessing that a lot of people, at least from outside of the US, non-native speakers will have a similar problem. The other thing that was mentioned, which is change rate, and I think most people can guess what that is, but it's probably good to explain why entropy and change rate in this particular case is important, and maybe also explain what the word means, because some may not be familiar with it, just like myself.
Yeah, I think we can do a better job of labeling some of these things on UI. So version 1, right? Bear with us. I think we're going to do we're already thinking about how to make that aspect of the product as well as other aspects of the service much more accessible and less kind of cryptic. So let's talk about entropy, right? So first of all, where does this occur in the flow? As I said, when you're going to recover the workload from a snapshot, you can, kind of guess, but what do you guess based on? What's a good snapshot to go to? You have 6 months worth of snapshots and backups available. Which one do you go to? And so we have built, as part of this ransomware recovery offering, a way for you to visualize the data change rate and the entropy, these two metrics. And we show that for a VM for the entire history, right, across all of the backups. And that allows you to very intuitively select, okay, in this area, the entropy and change rate look like this is when the infection happened, and then this is before the infection. So let me recover to a point in time that's before the infection happens. That's where it sort of, where you occur upon it in the workflow. What is it? So change rate, you understand, right? It's the rate of, it's how much data changes every so often, right? Every unit of time. And it's a great measure to tell you that, okay, when an encryption event is happening, right? When a ransomware is sort of finally deciding to reveal itself and starting to encrypt your workloads, you'll see a high change rate. So you should see a spike in the amount of data that's changing relative to the normal rate of change, right? So normally applications are functioning and there's I/O happening. So there'll be a normal rate of change, the baseline. But when an encryption event happens, you would typically see a spike. So that's one metric. But that's not enough, because a lot of workloads have these spikes as a matter of course, because, there are, for example, ETL jobs that are happening, or there's backup software that you're running in parallel that is resulting, in sort of a lot of reads and so on, and corresponding writes. Or there might be just a seasonal peak. So change rate by itself, not enough. And that's why we have this other metric called entropy, which is, in a word, it's a measure of how random the data is on your file system, right? It's a measure of randomness, and the key thing here is that if there's an encryption event, the randomness spikes up as well, right? Whereas normal spikes in, even during high periods of high change, normally you would see a much less random pattern, right? And at a very high level, there's a lot of depth to this, how this is done and so on, but at a very high level, this is what high entropy versus low entropy means, right? High entropy means there's a lot of randomness in the way the data is changing, and low entropy means there's less randomness, right? And so high change rate combined with an sudden increase in entropy are indicative of something fishy going on. It's still not a definitive sort of yes, no, right? You still have to kind of maybe do some trial and error, and you run the behavior analysis to kind of be sure. But it gives you a fairly good indication that this is, when some bad event happened corresponding to a ransomware attack.